Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peeps that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Welcome, y'all, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I want to thank y'all for tapping in with us. First week of 2024, and I'm so excited today. Y'all, I got a phenomenal, dope guest here with me. Wyking Garrett, the president and CEO of Africatown Community Land Trust, is here with me. But so many know him for his giving nature here in community, like constantly being dedicated to seeing the legacy of brilliance of Black folks continue to rise and thrive in the Central District. So I'm excited. I'll be talking to him about the great work at Africatown and also kind of the plight of our community overall. So I'm excited to do a deep dive with him today. Of course, it is the top of the show, though, y'all. So it's a great time for you to participate and go ahead and tag and share the stream with folks who you feel could benefit from all the greatness we have going on here on the Day with Trae. Well, because this is the first time really that I think I've had him in studio, and of course on our new set in the Black Media Matter Studios, I'm gonna go right to it because up next we got Wyking Garrett in the building. What's up, Wyking?
Peace, Trae. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? You too. Thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule to join me on today. As I said yesterday, one of my favorite people. You are also too, just one of my favorite people in the world. I get to tell the whole world that right now. But really, it's because I've been able to witness and be under your tutelage and realize the level of dedication that it takes to get things done. And Africatown is known to so many. But for those who may not know what Africatown Community Land Trust is, let's start there.
Sure. Africatown Community Land Trust is, one entity within our larger Africatown ecosystem, which is focused on acquiring and developing and stewarding land for our community to be able to grow and thrive and place. The Africatown concept is really about having an asset-based development strategy that maintains and creates space for the beauty, the best, and the brilliance of our Black experience to be able to flourish into the future. So learning from our past, taking the best, learning from the rest, and moving forward. So. The Land Trust was established in 2016. Currently have about $300 million in development in the pipeline, about 600 affordable housing units, which include rental, and we're also working on home ownership. And then some people may know the Liberty Bank building, which was the first project that we really applied our development approach and philosophy to. Opened in 2019. It's home to community members that were displaced or at risk of displacement have been able to come back or stay in the community, as well as three vibrant businesses. Earl's Cuts and Styles, 30 years on the Union, still there. Cafe of Old, and the world famous Communion. And so that just really, again, we have the brilliance in our community. It needs space though. And so that's been our focus. And now we have Africatown Plaza, which is being completed and currently in lease up, which is another 126 units of affordable housing. So, and I think the work overall, if you look at, just 23rd and Union, is much different than I think what was initially projected in the trajectory that it was on, which really didn't include us. But now if you go there, you see us represented, our journey and experience represented in the art. You see us represented in the actual design of the built environment with Africatown Plaza and its very unique, iconic design. And I think that's just, some representation of what we envision for our community that has been in the Central District in Seattle for over 140 years to continue to be a part of the future of the city.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, when we think about all of the work, development takes years, right?
Definitely.
And so this idea of, Africatown starting and really being able to seed the design framework, the development framework, bringing community voice into the center of that. So building alongside community, not just for community, but really centering the voice of community. I think, Africatown has done such an exemplary job of that, but also along the way, you've had to teach other developers, right? Like the importance of that. And I think there's not been enough kind of focus on how the approach that Africatown has really taken for these development projects now is inspiring others. I mean, we're seeing even other community developers kind of come to Africatown or look to Africatown as a great example and a model for now what they can do in their neighborhoods and their communities. Tell us a bit about how that resonates with you as folks have really understood, the level of brilliance of the model.
Yeah, I think a big part of our work is really about changing the narrative and the concept of what's possible, right? So I think prior to some of the projects that we've been able to, get done, really the story was that, it's over for Black people in the Central District and Seattle in general. And I think being able to have a community first, value-based approach, where we really stand on, our principles, oftentimes, which puts us in, contention that for those that don't have our best interests of our community, or, are seeking many ways to exploit, maybe use flowery words, but when we get down to the budgets, that's where you see the equity. So we hear a lot about equitable development, but for us, equity is, the ownership, the how the economics of a project are distributed. And so, each one of our projects can be evaluated, to see just how equitable and beneficial to our community is. And we are proud what we've been what we've been able to accomplish against, all odds, so yeah, I think showing that something else is possible and then inviting or challenging people to step their game up, I think that's where we're at now. Yeah. We've seen some people kind of voluntarily come. We've seen others have to be, helped a little more. And for us, it's about setting new standards, because one project, two projects, one organization doesn't make a community. So we want to see impact at scale. So that means others embracing and replicating the models that we're advancing. So, but for us, it's proof of concept. And I think the concept is now proven. So now it's about, replicating and scaling so that we can make sure that we have a thriving community, not just a few, people left over.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think back to my, first connections with Africatown, and the level of the vision was always so large. It was always like, we're talking about years in the future, and understanding development takes time. There was always this level of intentionality. We started the week off talking about intentions. There was always this level of intentionality to not only understand that we had the brilliance, but that we needed the platforms for the brilliance to thrive, right? For the brilliance to be exalted and really exemplify it. And so I really give so much credit to Africatown for doing that in that way. But that level of intentionality meant oftentimes, also how we bring community members along as Africatown was learning, which I think was so key to this model when we understand centering folks in the community. Now over time, more people in the community are like, okay, we get it a little bit more now. And it's resonating with community members now more than it was maybe when I first connected with Africatown. And it's great to see that, because, that's something where I realized, man, it's a beautiful way to bring everyone up. You know, when they talk about rising the tide, I see that in the model that's been created. And you're talking about $300 million of development projects, 600 plus units. I mean, this has been a way to not only showcase the model, but to also prove to our community members who may have been on the fence a little bit about like what is the goal here? What is it? How are y'all spending money? There was all kind of stuff. You know, what kind of things do you say now when people approach you and they're like, man, just keep up the great work? I mean, how does that resonate with the staff and with you yourself?
Well, people, our community has been promised a lot, so I can understand, skepticism. There's been many plans and plans and plans of urban renewal, model cities, Great Society program. There's all of these. There's a history of promises being made but left unfulfilled, right? And so people want to see it to believe it, and that was really the focus, to get some things done in brick and mortar, to make the rhetoric real, so that we can then say, we've been able to do this, as people have been skeptical, but what if everyone leans in? What more can we do? And so when people say that, I say, thank you, but we can do more together than we can do apart. And when we think about really building a future, the generational wealth is, yes, it's monetarily, but having a community, having traditions, having culture, having a legacy that, our young people can be connected to and continue, is a form of generational wealth as well, that we have to, really kind of tune into, because it's not just, us as individuals, but, we're up against, systems and structures, that, are not related. They're not limited to any one personality or person or time period. And we have to, get back to building those things. And a lot of times we can't see beyond where we are. There's a saying, where there's no vision, the people perish. And I think we're not giving, a vision for our future as a community. And we've seen, us that dissolving. But sometimes we have to look back, right? Sankofa tells, look back, go back and fetch, go forward. And we can see that we've been building communities, just Reconstruction, right? Coming out of slavery without land and resources, and scrapping together and building, towns and jurisdictions across this country, the fact that we built the majority of, the country as enslaved people without compensation. And then if you go further back, we built civilizations, time immemorial. So if we can reference that, then we can know what is possible for us and what we can do. And a lot of times that history is not, known or to us. And so we're just looking at, well, we don't have it, we can't do it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times we just have to go within ourselves to find, that those infinite resources that we do have, and then collaborate, put it together. And there's going to be some struggle, so.
But we get there. And the great thing too, I think, is Africatown has not just been focusing on residential, right? In terms of the ways to utilize the development framework to then build institutions and spaces that are needed in our community. So I want to talk a bit about William Grove Center and Banu, which are amazing, phenomenal projects that Africatown has been able to also, bring out for the community. Tell us more about these projects.
Yeah, William Grove Center for Cultural Innovation is probably my favorite, because you get to go in to a space and see the genius of our young people really being nurtured and cultivated, around being the problem solvers of the future. And so, it's a space for innovation. We know that innovation is part of our legacy here and before, whether it's, what Jimi Hendrix did with the guitar, jazz, up to Zenobia Bailey, a wonderful artist out of Seattle, Ishmael Butler. There's so many names and, unnamed or not as prominent, but still constantly creating and innovating, um, connecting that with the economy. We've always been entrepreneurial. We've had to be. I was told you need a job, a business, and a hustle one by elder one time. And so we've always been entrepreneurial, making a way out of no way. But again, as this innovation economy has developed around us, this tech-based, economy, which is all about creative problem solving, our genius has not been able to, has not been brought to bear in those spaces in a way that returns, economic mobility to our community. And so as this economy grows and we're not a part of it, our community has been, pushed out, right? So William Gross has been a place of pathways, as well as building an ecosystem around creative innovation, the creative economy, tech-based economy, entrepreneur. We have young people in there in agri-tech, with hydroponics, aquaponics, digging their hands in the dirt to creating VR worlds and, sending messages across the sky. So that is, very, inspiring. And it's really kind of the epicenter again of building this, Africatown cultural innovation ecosystem and district. We didn't want to just be a historic district where we're just like murals and plaques of, what used to be, but living memorials, where that activity that's inspired by the past is happening as the greatest honor to the past. So that's what William Gross Center for Cultural Innovation at the former Fire Station 6, which was, where Black men were first able to serve our community as firefighters and first responders. And so I think we're responding to a different type of, fire that's been destroying our community, which is, economic exclusion, the educational deficiencies and also the capital flow into our towards our entrepreneurs. So striving to bridge those gaps. Just celebrated one year, and it's been amazing. It's we just again think of it as our Tuskegee, which was built brick by brick by Black people and our great George Washington Carver, and so again referencing what we've done and then just replicating that environment. That's the model of Africatown community development, taking the pieces of our greatness and putting them into our new spaces.
I mean, then you recognize the need for space for our unhoused folks, right? And so Banu really has stepped up in a phenomenal way to showcase the impact of culturally responsive care for those who need that level of care. Tell us more about Banu.
I just want to also shout out the leadership team at William Gross.
Yes.
Ty Griffin, Henry, and Bailey, our community builder, they're over there, really making it happen for our young people. So WilliamGross.org, tap in there to get connected. And yes, it's all an eco. When you think of a community, it is an ecosystem, right? And there's various different needs. So when we're talking about housing, there's rental, there's ownership, and then there's our community members that are actually outside on the street. And what we found is that Black people in general are overrepresented nationally. We're 13% of the population, but over 40% of homeless. This is just absurd disparities. And so when we acquired this former Cairo site at 16th and Yesler across from Langston Hughes, saving that from predatory development that would have just further accelerated the displacement. They were going to build like almost 300 units of market rate, which is beyond the means of most of what our community members are making, and really almost anyone that's not in kind of the tech space or in those high wage jobs. We have a building that was formerly assisted living center serving the Japanese Pan Asian community primarily, that could be used. And so we identified, one, to address the lack of culturally responsive services. There were no shelter programs of scale serving our community. And then we identified Black men as being the highest, being overrepresented in that population. And so decided to develop, a model rooted in respect and giving, loving and care with dignity that is responsive to the unique lived experiences of Black men in the society, which produce the outcomes of being overrepresented in incarceration and in homeless population.
Yeah. Well, again, I think for me, I kind of stand back and I'm just like, wow, as much of as an ambassador I am, I love the work. And that is something that it drew me back into community in such a deeply profound way for me. And so thank you for that. Because really I've been able to now just be somebody who's out there constantly telling people about the dope stuff going on in Seattle, and Africatown is such a nexus of that. And you just explained a lot why. But after the break, we're going to talk a bit about how this kind of all plays into the broader ways that we're looking at our community. Y'all, we're going to continue this amazing discussion, of course, with Wyking Garrett, and learn more about some of the things that we're looking forward to in 2024 as we think about our community right here in the Seattle area, and particularly the Central District. Stay tuned right after this short break. You're watching The Day with Trae.
My mind a lot, don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, that's babe, need you every day. You seem like the barging down, got my heart no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch, might wake the neighbors up, break you in and break you out. In the end, we gon' make a child. Then we gon' hit the show. Part 2, we don't need no pause. Here with Misty, we gon' get tipsy, don't need a power shot.
Copy my steel. Face the fact that copy my steel.
A new COVID vaccine is here. It's designed to help prevent the COVID variants that we're seeing spreading now. Even if you got COVID before or got COVID booster shots and the vaccine, it's important to get this new vaccine. It's safe to get the COVID shot and the flu shot at the same time. Get both to prevent serious illness this fall and winter.
Get ready for a night of solid gold with the Temptations and the Four Tops. Same night, same stage. The Temptations and the Four Tops together live.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me today, second episode of our new season at the top of 2024, is the president and CEO of Africatown Community Land Trust, Wyking Garrett. Also, amazing ambassador and advocate for community in general. So I'm glad that we're going to shift a bit now and talk more about how the community kind of is shaping up, what kind of things we're looking forward to in 2024. And for me, I want to start, I know it goes back to Africatown, but I want to start with like the state of Africatown. I mean, this is a huge event that is now over 10 years old. And what is it, in its 11th year? Wow. I mean, this is the top of the year. It always happens in the first quarter of the year to really identify, exemplify, and amplify the work that's being done in community, in the Black community in particular. Right. Tell us more about how the state of Africatown kind of got inspired to start and how it's really continued over all these years.
Sure. The way it started was in collaboration with former state representative Don Mason, who was a part of the transition team for previous mayor in 2013, and wanted to get community involved. And I also had an idea to have our own like community-based TED Talk type event where we highlight solutions. A lot of times at community forums, they're like venting sessions about, what's wrong in the community or what's not happening. But, we want to definitely be solutionary in our approach and highlight the things that are happening, that are working, that should be lifted up, that should be supported and should be invested in. So I think in the 10 years, we've highlighted over 100 different, initiatives in the community, and want to continue to do that, and also address, where are we, particularly, on a, as far as Africatown specific, what did we say we're going to do? What did we accomplish? What are our challenges and what are we striving to do next? Report back, but on a bigger scale, where are we as a, as a community, as a people, and what do we need to be, focusing on? What are our interests and how do we advance our interests towards being able to thrive, right? And not just survive or not survive, which unfortunately, we're not at a much higher rate than other people. So that's the nature of it. And I think as we come into 2024, where, as we end this year, we're 3 years out from 2020, where, Black death and murder was really leveraged to get the White House, to get the last election. And then once that was achieved, we started to see the focus, the headlines, shift, so the energy, which led to, what was called the racial reckoning, a lot of proclamations, a lot of statements about, realizing what was wrong and the commitment to make change, to build a new normal and rooted in equity. And we've seen a lot of that again, slowly dissipating.
Yeah.
But what we haven't seen is the conditions change, to be that new normal rooted in equity. And so I think 2024, we're coming into another presidential year. And the X factor is, are we going to be able to use our energy to really secure our interests, and there's a lot of learning, again, there was a lot of response and resources were deployed, but were they harnessed and directed in a way that gives us long-term sustainable change? Yeah. And how do we get there, And so I think that the statistics, and obviously things are not going to move overnight, but if you take the focus off and you stop applying, allocating the necessary attention and resources and effort, then definitely it's not gonna change. And so I think it's upon our community to really focus on, what's working, what hasn't. We saw a lot of the, energy that was at the grassroots, in many ways get co-opted, right? Yeah. People that were not necessarily connected to or accountable to or rooted in or working with community in certain ways, ended up at tables determining, where resources went. We saw a lot of divisive, activity, happen. And again, if we don't unite the resources, they're not going to be as powerful and impactful as if, the various different, entities and interests and people that are getting resources, if that's aligned so that they can complement, work together, and collaborate, we're not going to see, we'll see those budgets get expended after a year or 2 years, and then where are we? And so our, a big focus that we had through that time and maintain is land. We still have to focus on the land, capital to develop, and controlling the resources that are supposed to impact our lives. And I think that's where we really need to be focusing, because we saw a lot of the resources that initially came out to address the condition of the Black community, then, begin to be diverted to a lot of other causes or interests or, multicultural initiatives and DEI. But really, we were specifically speaking about the plight of Black people who labored and were not compensated and have faced structural anti-Black racism at every stage of our existence in the land. And to get to equity, those things have to be addressed. And if we start, looking at every other circumstance, we're not going to get the outcomes that we say we desire. So I think that's important.
Well, yeah, this is why I'm glad that we, are really talking about this, because the history has proven itself time and time again. I think the level of intense focus that's needed for us to examine and be really the ones, again, as you said, wielding these resources, but seeing where they go, how they've gone in years past, and setting ourselves up to be prepared to receive the funds and do what's necessary for them, I think is a part of it. But this concept of really the collaboration piece, connecting all of these resources, because they do get disseminated out. Like that kind of stuff happens over and over again. Mm-hmm. But how can we make sure that once we understand where they've gone, that we have a concentrated effort to really bring them together in a way to increase their impact? So I really appreciate you diving into that, because I think that that's something that is still to be kind of understood by so many in community. We have some great leaders who are now like, hey, this is really what I'm about. I'm really trying to make sure we do that work. Mm-hmm. So I like that it's not on just one organization's shoulders, as you said earlier.
Can't be.
Yeah, it's not going to work if that's the case.
There's too many different issues.
Yeah. And also, too, we've seen that not work well for our people in the past, right? Okay, hey, money's coming in for Black community. We're giving it to this one particular organization or these few, right? Because we think they're tapped in enough, and we're still not seeing the impact of it. So the ideas of, how we're elevating material conditions for Black families. I've been saying that for now some years, because it's true. Mm-hmm. That's the real outcome of, the correct distribution of those resources overall. And so
tangibles and measurables. How do we measure what's really working? Did it move? I mean, we've had, Seattle has a, record number of homicides, and we know the majority of those homicides are young Black men, right? We look at the academics, we see only 17% of Black students in Seattle public schools at proficiency in math, mm-hmm. right? How are they going to be a part of the future economy that is, knowledge and STEM based if they're not, getting those competencies down? And then how are you going to have that income, whether as an employee, high wage, or as an entrepreneur solving a problem that allows you to build generational wealth, to buy a home in Seattle? So, our approach is, starting from belly, from the womb to, we have to be focused on lifelong learning, and we have to look at how do we have a system that allows for and facilitates our well-being at each stage of life. And it's not going to just be a program or just an organization. Again, it's how all of these things are related to each other. And, I don't know if it's Einstein, they said you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. And, the system is very good at reestablishing the status quo. And so what we're seeing is, a lot of the same people that, haven't been able to effectively advance the interests of our community be put back into the positions of, determining or speaking for, right? And I think we definitely have to graduate, and we have to become more clear as a community, what our interests are. And, a lot of times we're given that wood nickel by someone who, gets a few pieces of silver on the side to, compromise the interests of the whole. And we have to become more aware as each individual, take responsibility to know what's going on and to, choose where we want to put our efforts. Ignorance is not exemption in a sense. And just because we don't know doesn't mean we're not going to be impacted by what happens. And we can see in our families, our own families, how we're being impacted by a lot of these forces.
This is a phenomenal topic. I mean, we could probably dive even deeper into this because I think it's not talked about enough, right? I think we have water cooler conversations, right? They're kind of done in silos where a lot of this rhetoric and the ideas behind it, and really the solutions that are necessary to combat a lot of what we've experienced historically is done in these smaller pockets. So bringing that brilliance together, I love this concept of, really being focused on how we do that in 2024 and really, again, making sure that our community members are educated on these things. So it's not so that there's some type of general consensus that begins to really, formulate once people are aware and have that information. But, we're at the end. So I got to give you time to look right there in the camera. You got Banu, you got William Grove Center, you got Africatown Plaza, and you got Africatown Land Trust. You got several different websites to drop on, folks. So this camera right here, closest to me, look right there. Let them know how they connect with all the great entities that you're heading up and that you're a part of. So connect with, tap in, Africatown Community Land Trust across all platforms. Africatown Community Land Trust, AfriCatownLandTrust.org, and Africatown Community Land Trust across all platforms can get you connected. So. Thank you.
Yeah.
How they follow you? Because you got a whole movement with Wyking Builds.
Wyking Builds on all platforms. There you go. Tap in. Don't tap out.
There it is. Okay, Wyking Garrett, thank you so much for being with me
Trae,
today.
thank you for being, the amazing face and voice of our community in so many spaces. Again, just we're gonna be working up at WGC to get our cloning machine working, so we can clone you if get about 10 of you and we'll be good.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, I'm here for it. Thank you so much.
Biotech. This is a biotech hub in Seattle,
Watch out, y'all. What a pleasure to sit here and chop it up with my good friend Wyking Garrett. Y'all doing some phenomenal work in community. I get to wrap it all up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
You on my mind a lot. Don't need no time, watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, that's babe, need you every day. You seem like the barging down. Got my heart, no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch. Might wake the neighbors up. Break you in and break you out. In the end, we gon' make a child. Then we gon' hit the show. Part 2, we don't need no pause. You miss me, we gon' get tipsy. Don't need a power shot.
Copy my steel. Face the fact that. Copy my steel. Face the fact that.
A big day here at Lumen Field. Throws it over the top. Metcalf. Touchdown. Jayhawks. And it is picked off. The fans are in the stands. They've got their towels. Walker gets the handoff. He goes in untouched. Dalton gets hit in the backfield. He goes down. Keep bringing it, 12. Keep bringing it. The Seahawks win the game.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Day with Trae. What a phenomenal second episode of this season for 2024. Huge shout out to my guest, Wyking Garrett, for being here with me today and for giving us just a glimpse of not only the great work going on at Africatown, but also what we're looking forward to in 2024 when it comes to our community. You know, this is a discussion that I'm having with so many different people as I think about some of the ways that I can use my energy to pour into these efforts. You know, how do we really work to get ourselves kind of out of some of the historical context that we've been kind of wrapped in? How can we educate ourselves even more so that we understand our collective power in a way that allows us to not only understand it, but to utilize it, y'all, to actualize it? So I really appreciate him getting with me today and to start my season off with something that is so profound for our community as we think about how we are going to be intentional in the effort that we bring to a collective shared vision of our success, of our health and our wealth, and literally the next generations pouring into them so that they know exactly how to continue this work and expand it in ways that are beyond our means right now in this plight, in this time. So huge shout out to him. Y'all know I was inspired. I mean, inspiration abounds here on the Day with Trae because honestly, these conversations aren't often had in a format like this. So I really appreciate him for coming, and I appreciate you for watching. Be inspired because you too can be a part of all the solutions that need to be created in order for us to actualize so much of what we've talked about here today. You are a part of that. This is not something that needs to happen around you, without you. Oh, they got it. No, no, no. Find your way. As he said, to tap in, don't tap out. Thank you so much again for watching. And y'all know, for me, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.